Hi, happy Friday, everyone. Sorry I wasn't able to do the Happy Friday or Casual Friday wine talk last week because last Friday I was actually doing a virtual Zoom blind tasting. So ever since the pandemic, I have been doing a lot of the virtual tasting online. And I think yesterday is probably one of the funnest and most interactive tasting we had because we focused on just doing blind tasting. It was all red wine, 6 different red wine blind tasting. And my goal was just to get them all geek out. It was not a consumer tasting, like it wasn't like a winery tasting where they give you the best ambiance because their end goal is trying to sell you wine. My goal was actually just geek out with my clients and the people who absolutely love wine and want to learn more about their own palate to teach them everything I learned when I learned how to do blind tasting. So, hi Kirk, yes, virtual tasting is through Zoom, and I'm just like, I wanted to share because it was such a great experience, and thank you for all of you who was here last Friday, and they all said it was the best tasting. A lot of them have done many tasting, but a lot of them said it's the best tasting. They got a lot of value out of it, and they want me to do more tasting just like that. So today I wanted to kind of talk about why I encourage, even if you're not doing it with me, to, do more blind tasting if you can, ideally guided by someone who knows what they're doing. Or else it's kind of like the blind leading the blind, if that makes sense. It's still fun though. I mean, still do it, any chance you get. But having someone who has experience in wine tasting and can talk about what you're tasting and smelling is really important. So let's go down the point. Number one, I think you should do more blind tasting when you can, and even virtually, is you can learn how to taste better in order to maximize what you get out of the glass. I don't think many of the people in my group are in this category because although a lot of you are so humble saying that you are a beginner, but a lot of you or else you wouldn't be in the group. A lot of you do know what you're doing. You have read book and you have studied, and or at least you have the drive and the interest to study and learn more about wine tasting. But so many times in the beginning, people are not doing a lot of the little things that you can in order to get the most out of your glass. People might be drinking the wine too hot, too cold, not using the right glasses, not smelling it in the right way, or not smelling it low enough, or just chugging it. There's so many tiny little things that is really not a big deal at all, but once someone guides you through it, it really maximizes the stuff you can just get out of a single glass, and it makes wine tasting so much more fun. It's not just chugging and getting drunk. Now, number two, have someone live with you tasting next to you on the same side of wine so that I can guide you through where you're smelling and tasting. Because one of the things that is very hard, I think, for people in general when it comes to wine buying is to describe what it is they're smelling, what it is in a wine that they like or they dislike, especially after the fact. Like, I will have client who tries really hard to tell me, like, hey, I really love a wine I had yesterday, but I was in a restaurant. Well, restaurant is like a distant memory, but back in the days, I was at a restaurant and someone just poured it for me. I don't remember the name of the wine, but then they're not able to describe the taste they're tasting or smelling. Or sometimes they buy a bottle of wine home, opened it, and they hate it, but they can't describe later on what is it about the wine or us in the wine that make them really not like it. So having us blind taste 6 wines in a row, and I purposely pick a good contrast with a lot of different varietal and from different region, so France and United States, to have a lot of different contrasts. So it was really cool to be live and have some of them go, okay, I'm smelling something in wine number 3. I can't describe it and I hate it. And the cool thing is then someone else on a Zoom meeting will say, okay, I also smell the same thing in the wine glass. I think it's this and I love it. So cool. But then for me then I can go, okay, I can see, because just by their description, I can see based on your description on what you think you're smelling and tasting, and you're having a trouble placing it, I can guide you from a trained palate that what is it that you're really tasting or smelling? For example, during our tasting, one of the guy was smelling Old World Bordeaux, which he doesn't know was Bordeaux at the time because I haven't given an answer yet. He kept putting his nose in the wine and said, I feel like I'm smelling something like artificial and I hate it. But he wasn't able to put it to words. But what he was smelling was a classic, that funky, almost dirty, barnyardy, I hate to say it, almost poopy smell that you get in Bordeaux. He doesn't like it. But all it takes is someone to taste next to you, wish you, and then tell you, hey, that's exactly what you're smelling, and it's okay if you love it or you hate it. That's the fun thing about wine. If we all have the same palate, then there's no point of making all this different wine from all these different areas in the world, because we'll just be drinking the same thing. So that's another really cool thing. And number 3 is really fun to understand your own. I know in the description I said your strong strengths and your weak point when it comes to your smell and tasting, but that's more like in a testing format. I'm sorry, I'm so used to being in a testing format. So for us, it's like, oh, strengths and weaknesses. So like, for example, for me, my strengths is being raised and born in Taiwan, that I can smell a lot of the tropical fruit very easily. Like I grew up eating lychee, really good pineapple, mango. So I am really good at dragging those aroma out of a glass of wine. Whereas when I was still in the pursuit of my some career, talking to a lot of other American born and raised counterpart who are also studying wine, they will talk about the smell of lychee, but to them it's a very kind of a very vague aspect, because they've never actually tasted lychee. They don't even know how lychee looks like, but they just go, okay, this is what lychee is supposed to smell like. But for me, that's my strength, because it's embedded in me growing up eating so much lychee, and it just, as soon as I smell it, I get it. And then there's, like I said, weak point, but that is just for testing. So certain things have a hard time smelling. People always say that Gunnar Veltliner from Austria smells like wet pepper. I love wet pepper, but I can't smell it in that wine to save my life. I have to look for other aroma in order to identify it. But then again, in a more casual sense, like we did on Friday, it's not really quote unquote strengths and weak points, but it's for me to understand kind of your preference. Like, what are you more sensitive to? So for example, we also have someone on the Friday tasting. She was very, very good with her acid level, and then we have another lady who was the opposite. She was actually having a hard time telling the difference between 2 acid level in the beginning, until we kind of talked to her about exactly how to individually separate the different aspect of what you're tasting to be able to detect acidity wine better and be more accurately describe it. So that was like just super fun. And of course, last but not least, many of them are already a client. So this really helps me to understand what they love and what they don't love. And it was so cool because some of them I already know for a period of time. They have been purchasing from me, and it was just so cool to watch them blind taste and reconfirm that what they have told me that they like was exactly what they really did like in the blind tasting. Because I have one lady who was very old world driven just like me, and she picked out every single old world wine, and she told me that she's always into the more elegant style grape like Pinot Noir and the Italian grape varietal. And then lined up, that's exactly what she leaned towards. Whereas another gentleman always like a little more of the New World palate, since that's ripe and full body, and he picked all the opposite wine. And it is so cool, and there's no right or wrong answer, but it's so great for me there with them to get to know them even more. It's like very intimate on a tasting level, if that makes sense. And last but not least, I just want to also send a quick note that please, for the love of wine and love of all things delicious, do not fall for, I see this all the time on my social media feed, and every time I see it, I almost break my iPhone. The whole, just tell you, someone was trying to call me. Hopefully there wasn't a lag. Anyways, so those ads is like, hey, please take this short risk test quiz, like 4 questions, and we will know exactly what kind of wine you like, and we'll just send you the wine you like every single month. There's no shortcut in this. There's so many different elements in wine, and you could simultaneously like one thing in one wine but not in the other. For example, the element of oak. I could enjoy it when it comes to, for example, Bordeaux. I like my Bordeaux with oak because usually the best Bordeaux, the classified girls are the ones that see a lot of new oak and then it works well with them. But I don't necessarily like oak in my Brunello de Montalcino. I like them then in the big barrel, the classic rustic style. So all those tests, they do pick up one or two things because I click onto them before. They're like, oh, do you prefer sweet or not sweet? Like, or do you prefer coffee or vanilla? You're just like, no, there's no way you can just answer 4 questions and they magically know what your palate prefer. So it is really a journey. It is about discovering. It's about learning and growing and trying new things because, hey, life is a box of chocolate. Why just stick with one favorite? So with that being said, that is my casual Friday wine talk on a Monday, because why not? Thank you very much for listening, and I hope that I will get to do some virtual blind tasting or some kind of tasting with you in the future if you want and are interested to learn more about your palate. And of course, if you haven't already, please go on my website. It's called www.angiesom.com, ANGIESOMM, and subscribe to my emailing list so you will never miss any of the virtual tasting that's coming up next or any of the cool wine deals I have coming down the pipeline. Thank you very much. I hope you guys have a safe and fabulous week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.